Number 2 shows two dot plots that compare 20 pizza deliveries, each made by Toppers and by Pizza Hut. So the dot plots are already drawn for us. We don't have to do that part of it. Our job is to interpret what the dot plots are saying, right? And that's a lot of what we're trying to do here, is that we can have computers crunch numbers and do that part of it. The human part, what we need humans for, is to be able to interpret. What does this mean? What should we do? Right? So that's the human part. Again, computers have gotten really good at being able to crunch the numbers. We need to do the interpretation part. So what this shows is that Toppers and Pizza Hut, the negative means they showed up early. So let's say they said they were going to be there in 30 minutes and they showed up in 20, then that means they were 10 minutes early. So it doesn't mean that it took them negative 10 minutes to deliver the pizza. Again, this is how did they do compared to what they said they were going to do. So 0 would mean that they said they were going to be there in 25 minutes and they were there in 25 minutes. Right? The positive number represents minutes late. So, how could you be 25 minutes late? Well, if you said you were going to be there in 30 and then you showed up in 55, that would be 25 minutes late. So let's make sure we understand the number, how it's numbered. Again, that's not delivery time in minutes. That's how many minutes they were off what they said they were going to be. And the question is asking us, which place would you choose to order your pizza if we were looking for it to be on time? So, and it's really important, by the way, with these kinds of problems, is that we're not going off personal experience. So we're not going off, well, oh, you know what, last weekend I tried to order pizza and they were late. Again, we're not going off your personal experience here. We're just sticking to what the data tells us in the problem. So don't confuse yourself by incorporating your own or putting in your own kind of experiences or thoughts. We just need to look at the data that's given to us. So what we want to do is just really kind of run some numbers on Toppers and Pizza. Pizza Hut, and then look at the numbers and see how that compares. So what we're going to end up doing is that for each one of them, we're going to put the numbers in the calculator similar to what we did for the first problem, and then see what the numbers tell us. So there's really a couple different things that I want to look at. I want to look at what was the average, and then again, this is going to be for, we'll do Toppers first, since that's the first one. So this will be Toppers. I want to know the average, and also what I want to know is I want to know the median. The median is the middle. I want to know the standard deviation, which is what we looked at on the last one. And one other thing I want to look at is I want to know the range. The range represents high minus low. Right? That's what the range represents. Let's write that in. So this represents high minus low. And then I want to do that for each one. So I want to do that for Toppers, and then I'm going to run the same numbers for Pizza Hut, and then I want to compare. So we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to look for the average, the median, the standard deviation, and the range. And so what this is going to give us is it's going to give us a feel for, is on average, is Toppers, are they on time, are they late, are they early? Same question for Pizza Hut. That's what we want to figure out. All right, well, so let's pull up the calculator, because this is where we're going to put all of the numbers into. Let's go back to Stat. And when we hit Edit, we got the numbers in there from the last problem that we just did. So scroll up, hit Clear, and then scroll back down. The numbers are gone. Let's do Toppers first. So it looks like negative 10, which would be 10 minutes early. That happened 3 times. So we're going to hit negative 10. And I should mention to you real quickly, by the way, notice where I'm doing the negative at. It's this key right here. Don't hit that key. That's for a minus, as in subtraction. So this is our negative. So negative 10. And that happened 3 times. And one more negative 10. And let's see what else would happen. 5 minutes early, that happened 4 times. So let's do negative 5 4 times. And 0, which represents they were on time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would have 8 zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, positive 5, that means they were late 5 minutes. That happened 3 times. So we'll put that in 3 times. And then finally, they were late 10 minutes, and that happened twice. So we'll do 10 and 10. We always want to make sure that we got our numbers in correctly, because if we didn't, we're going to get a totally different answer. So let's just kind of check real quick. I've got a total of 20 numbers. How many should I have? If I look back at the problem, it says 20 pizza deliveries. That's how many numbers I should have, a total of 20. And I do, so I'm good. I got 20. All right, so let's have the calculator do the work. So let's hit stat. Now we've got the numbers in there. We want to go back to calc to calculate, and we just want to do one variable, statistics, because we're only looking at one thing, which is their on time of delivery. Remember, you have to enter for it to actually do anything, and then we've got some numbers here. All right, so let's record our numbers. So our x bar, which is our average, would be a negative 0.75. So let's think about what that means. Remember, negative means that they were early. So on average, it looks like Toppers was almost a minute early, right? So that's good. Let's look at the rest of the numbers. The median, which represents the middle point, the middle of the data set, right, which would be, if we laid out all these numbers in order from least to greatest, the median would be the middle. Median in this case would be 0. And let's look at standard deviation. Standard deviation here is 5.9. So let's say 5.9. And then the range would be the high minus the low, which would be their worst time minus their best time. So their highest was 10. So we'd say 10 minus their best time, which was they were 10 minutes early, which would be negative 10. Now, be careful there, right? That's your two-stick rule. The minus and negative, that turns into a plus, and so we get a total of 20 minutes. So with that range, again, what that means is that we're looking at what was their best time, what was their worst time. Well, it spans, or it ranges 20 minutes, right? From best, sorry, this would be best to worst, that's a span of 20 minutes, right? 5, 10, 15, 20. And why we're looking at this is that because we want to look at consistency. We want to look at dependability. How consistent are they delivering this pizza? So that consistency and dependability are going to come into play here. All right, so let's look at for Toppers. Let's draw our curve again, because we want to say, well, most of the time they were in between what and what. So that's what we want to try to figure out. So our average would be a negative 0.75, and then we're going to add 5.9, and we're going to subtract 5.9. So if I added 5.9, so I'm going to say plus 5.9, and then I'm going to say minus 5.9. So let me get the calculator, see what that's going to come up to. And again, we can clear that out. So negative 0.75 plus 5.9, and I get 5.15. So let's say 5.15. And on this side, if I took negative 0.75 and I subtracted 5.9, I get negative 6.65. So negative 6.65. Okay, so what is that? So what's the significance of that? What that means is that most of the time, right? Not all the time, but most of the time, they were anywhere from about 7 minutes early, right? Like if you rounded that up. So most of the time, they were anywhere from about 7 minutes early to about 5 minutes late. And then if we look to see if that makes sense, here's would be 7 minutes early to about 5 minutes late. That's most of the time, right? Obviously, there was 2 times they were late, 10 minutes, 3 times they were early by 10 minutes, but that represents most of the time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rerun the numbers for Pizza Hut and then do kind of the same analysis with them. So how you would do that is go back to Stat, Edit, and then we got the Toppers numbers in there. So let's clear out the Toppers numbers. Let's hit Clear, scroll back down, and then let's put in the Pizza Hut numbers. So Pizza Hut looks like they're best one time they were early by 25 minutes. And again, you say, well, how could you be early by 25 minutes? That would be if they said they were going to be there in 45 minutes and they showed up in 20 minutes, right? So that would be 25 minutes early. Next data point looks like they were early by 10 minutes. That happened twice. And early by 5 minutes. That happened 3 times. And then as far as on time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they were on time 6 times. And late 5 times, or late 5 minutes, that happened 4 times. So we'll do 4 times. And late 10 minutes, that happened 3 times. And then they were late by 20 minutes, that happened once. Again, this was over 20 pizza deliveries, right? Remember we said total of 20? So we should have a total of 20 numbers, and we do, right? So we got a total of 20 numbers. All right, so let's have the calculator sweat it out and do the work. So we'll go back to Stat, Calc, and one variable Stats. Let's hit Enter, and then let's take a look at our numbers. So the average, you notice the average this time is a positive, so it's a positive 0.5. So what that means, right, so think about that. Does that mean they were, on average, they were early or they were late? Well, because it's a positive, that means on average, they were late. So already I'm getting a feel for maybe Toppers is a little bit more dependable, because on average, they tend to be early. These guys, Pizza Hut, tend to be late. Let's look at the rest of our numbers. The median, you notice on this one, the median is actually the same at 0. So the middle number ended, if we laid these numbers out, the middle number ended up being the same. What's different, right, and this is really where this question is going, is that what's really different about Pizza Hut? Well, they have these extremes, like one time they were way late, 20 minutes, or one time they were way early, negative 25 minutes. So this gets to how dependable they are. What's the variability in their delivery time? Let's get the rest of the numbers down here. So standard deviation, our standard deviation is 9.44. So we got 9.44. And then the range, take their high, which is 20, minus their low, which is negative 25. And again, that's your 2-stick rule. So that ends up being 45 minutes. So this is something else we could point to, is we could say, well, Toppers, from their best time to their worst time, it was only a difference of 20 minutes. So I mean, that means they're pretty dependable. Pizza Hut, from their best to worst time, was 45 minutes. So that suggests a kind of a wilder swing that, again, maybe they're going to be really late, maybe they'll be really early, you just don't know. It's not as dependable. Last thing we want to do is kind of look at, we want to say, just like with Toppers, we said, well, most of the time they were between 7 minutes early and 5 minutes late. Let's do the same thing for Pizza Hut. And we said that their average is 0.5. And then their standard deviation is a lot larger. It's 0.944. So we're going to add 0.944 and we're going to subtract 9.44. So let's throw that in the calculator and clear that out. So we've got 0.5 plus 9.44, which would give us 9.94. So we could say 9.94. And then on the other side, and again this represents most, on the other side if we subtracted, so if we said 0.5 minus 9.44, and I'd get negative 8.94. So what would I say about this? I would say most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time they were either 9 minutes early at their best or almost 10 minutes late. Right, because 9.94, that would be almost 10 minutes. So let's compare the two then. They're between 6 minutes early, 5 minutes late. They're between 9 minutes early, 10 minutes late. So there's more variability. There's a wider spread here for Pizza Hut than there is for Toppers. So now that we ran all the numbers, right, so we cranked all the numbers out, now here's the interpretation part. This is where we actually need to now write an answer to what we've said here. So the question is that who would you order the pizza from? Who's more dependable? Well, in answering that question, and I should say there's not just one way to answer this question, but let's just talk about average. Who had the better average on time delivery? Well, we could say that Toppers, on average, they were about a minute early. So we could say so on average, Toppers was about a minute early. As compared to Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut being a minute late. Right, so that would be the first thing we'd say, well, why are we going to pick Toppers? Right, and that's what we're saying, by the way. We're saying that we're going to pick Toppers. Why? Well, our first thing we're pointing to is the fact that, well, on average, Toppers is a minute early. Pizza Hut on average is a minute late. So who's got the better on-time delivery? Well, it'd have to go to Toppers. But we don't want that to be the only thing that we speak about. So we want to then also kind of look at a couple of the other numbers that we looked at. We could say, too, is that the range, let's talk about the range. We could say that Toppers is more dependable because the delivery time ranged 20 minutes as compared, we'll say 20 minutes as compared to 45 minutes for Pizza Hut. So this is where we're trying to speak to the dependability part to say that, okay, who can you count on? Who's more consistent? Well, a smaller range indicates that they're more consistent, right? The swings, they aren't as it isn't dramatic swing, right, from one to the other. Pizza, it's more dramatic swing, 20 minutes late, 25 minutes early. So that means that they're less dependable. So there's a greater range there. So with a range of 45 minutes, we would say that they're not as dependable or as consistent as Toppers is with a range of 20. Another thing that we could speak about is we could talk about the standard deviation, right? So we could say that most of the time Toppers was in between 7 minutes early and 5 minutes late, which is better than Pizza Hut, who's early either by 9 minutes, but then which is good that they're early, but then the other side of that is that then sometimes they're late and late by almost 10 minutes, right? So this was kind of a lot here, right? We had to crank the numbers out and then do the analysis, but again, I think this gives you a real good real-life example of where someone would use some statistics. All right, so let's go ahead and stop the video now and try number 2 on the right side.